Welcome to Yeshiva Daf Shir sponsor Lui Nishmat Sav Yakashom Lev Sitzchok. We're holding over the Zara Daf Chofei. We're starting literally in the first words of the Gemara. The Rashi points out that the reason why we're bringing this Gemara, what does it have to do with what we're holding, is because Reb Lezer Reb Shmuel Bar Nachmani darshaned before the Psukim regarding the cows that they're singing. So they're arguing next in the following machlekes. What is it? Vayidem Hashemesh vayireach omad ad yokum goy oivov aloy ksuvo al sefer Yosher. So this pasuk is Sefer Yeshua. When Yeshua was fighting, in the war of Yeshua, it says that the sun stood and it did not go on. Vayidem Hashemesh vayireach omad. That's what it was. Aloy ksuvo al sefer Yosher. It's written in Sefer Yosher, this standing of the son of Yeshua. So, well, my Sefer Yosher, what is Sefer Yosher they're talking about? Talk about seven Bereshis. The Sefer Avram Mitzri V'Yakov. So it says, that's this week's Pasha, this past week's Pasha, that Balak said that he wants to die the death of the Avos HaKadoshim. So where we see in the Sefer Bereshis talking about the fact that the sun stood during the time of Yeshua, right? Because it says Zara ye meloi hagoy, that the Zara of the Avos, meaning referring to really to the Zara of Yosef, right? Because Yosef is bringing, what is Yosef doing? Yosef is taking his two kids, Menashe and Ephraim, and he wants Menashe and Ephraim to get a bracha. Yaakov is giving the bracha to Ephraim more than Menashe. So Yosef says, why? So he tells them, I'll tell you why. The reason why I'm doing it is because Zara Yemol Goyim. Who's Zara Yemol Goyim? Yeshua. That the Zara, Yeshua's name will be all over the world. How will it be all over the world? Because the sun stood. Once the sun stood, the whole world knew about what happened with Yeshua. And Matay Yemol Goyim, B'Shashon L'Chom Yeshua, that's what the Gemara says. Vaya'amoid Hashemesh B'Chatzi Shamayim. So it says in the pasuk there. Now we mention this. Now the Gemara says, it says that the sun stood in the middle of the Shemaim. So what Rashi tells us is there's two stoppages of the sun. One is Vayamud Hashemesh b'Chatzi Shamayim, that the sun stood in the middle of the sky. That's one. And then which referring to at the end of the day, it also did not come. Which means it's not going, and after the end of the day, towards the end, it's not rushing to come down. So it says the Gemara, the Kamo. So you have two stoppages over here. The sun stops in the middle of the sky, and the sun is stopping at right before the end of the day, twice. So one has to bring a few drushes. How long was this time of the stoppage? It was total 24 hours. That's why it says Ki Yom Tomim, like a full day. Ozil sheet, the sun went 6 hours, like a regular day, the 6 proportional hours from morning until Chatzos. The Komshis, then in Chatzos Sayoim, the sun stood for 6 hours. The Ozil sheets, and then it went for another 6 hours. Right? And then the Komshis. So in Chatzos Hayom, the sun is standing in the middle of the sky for 6 hours. Goes down to the evening, waits right before sunset another 6 hours. So you have a total, instead of being 12 hours of a day, you have 24 hours of a day. So that day was a 24-hour day. It was 36 hours. Other shades, the contracer, 6 hours it went, it waited 12 hours in the middle of the sky. Other shades became tracer. And then it went another 6 hours, and we had 12 hours. So total was 24 hours it was standing, 12 hours it was moving, a total of 36. Which means the time it was now moving was Kiyom Tamim. Not that day was a Yom Tamim, but the time the sun stood was Yom Tamim, a total of 24 hours of standing. It was 48 hours a day. Why? It went to the middle of the sky, stood there for 12 hours. Also, she's the calm and then it went to the end of before the evening, stood there for 24 hours. So it's 24 plus 12 plus a regular 12, which is a total of 48. So one dash the way it's like this. The sun stood in the middle and stood in the end for a whole day. Mashma, the time before it stood, it wasn't for the full day. So how much was it? It was half a day. That's how you dash. Tosefta means, Mash explains, they're arguing in the Tosefis of how much more the sun was in a regular day. What is it, 24? Azil Shiz Kantresa, Azil Shiz Kantresa. Was changing a little bit the Shitas. The first Shita we saw before, the way the Gemara said before, was 6 hours it went to Chatzais, stood 6 hours. 6 hours it went to Shkia, stood 6 hours, a total of 24. Now the Gemara saying, no, this Shita says it went 6 hours, stood 12. 6 hours to 12 was an additional 24 hours to the day. Amidasa came telling the time that it's standing and now moving is 24 hours. Which is the third Shita we said before, now we're saying in the second Shita. Azul Shei is a count trace, so he went 6 hours and stood for 12. Azul Shei is a count and then he went another 6 hours and stood for 24. So and did not move for the full day in that 24 hours, and we mailed it from here, Yimashua, we said before, Mashua the Vikar, as well, Bach adds over here. Mikar wasn't 24 hours. So you have a total of 36 hours. So that's how much, not, before we said the second sheet holds, that the entire day was 36 hours. Now the Gemara says, no, the 36 hours was the time it stood, was 36 hours. Now what is the third sheet? 48 hours it stood. How? 6 hours it went and then it stood for 24 hours. Then it went another 6, went 24 hours. Bidoso means standing in the middle of Shemayim. Bidoso means right before Shkia. In other words, it stood 24 hours twice. According to this last sheet though, that day of from morning to evening, instead of being normal 12 hours, was an additional 48 hours. A total of 60 hours it took from Nates to Shkia. So says the one now, the sun stood out not only for Yeshua Binun, but also for Moshe Rabbeinu and also Nagdim and Ben Gurion. Yeshua Kroy, Yeshua is a Farish apostle, we just say. Nagdim Ben Gurion, Gemara. That's the Gemara in Maseches Tainis that tells Nagdim Ben Gurion, if you remember the story, he took a loan and he says he get paid back with water. There was no water. So he davened to Hashem and the sun stood and there was rain coming down. The Moshe Rabbeinu, how do we know that the sun stood for Moshe Rabbeinu? It says, words achel and gzer shalom. So by Moshe Rabbeinu, when he was fighting so also here it says by Yeshua achel. So that's gzer shalom of says. It says the world will hear about Moshe Rabbeinu and be very scared. When they get scared, so the sun stood for Moshe Rabbeinu. Okay, so says the Gemara. It says there wasn't a day like that before or after. According to you, there was a time of Moshe Rabbeinu and there was a time of Yeshua Nagdim Megurin. There wasn't so many hours as we said now. By Yeshua there was stones of hail that came from Shemayim. As they're running away, he saw them stones from the Shemayim and they died. And that was something that was unique by Yeshua that didn't have a Moshe and Nagdim Ben Gurion. The more it goes down to another machlekes that we have, the same shitas of Reb Lozer of Shmuel bar Hartman. Ksiva yomer lamed me Yehudo keshes. Hinei ksuva sefer HaYosher. Right? So it says the Gemara. So this pasuk is referring to I'm not sure if this is machlekes. It says it's machlekes. And we're bringing that because we spoke about Sefer HaYashar. We'll see the machlekes is here as well. But it says over there, David HaMelech was doing a eulogy on Shaul. And it says within the eulogy that you're going to teach Ben Yehudo Keshes, you're going to teach Ben Yehudo to use a bow and arrow. Like it says in Sefer HaYoshua. My Sefer HaYoshua we're talking about. Like we said before, that's very gracious. So we said that's again the same pasuk we brought from this past week's parsha, that Avram Yitzchak called Yishari because Bilam wanted to die like them. Where does it say in Sefer Bereshis that Yehuda uses a bow and arrow? Because it says Yehuda ato yaducha achecha, your brothers will thank you. Your hands is in the neck of your enemies. It's more darshins. Even though it says Yadacha be'orev vevecho, Yudashi Yadecha be'orev. Your hand is next to your neck. When do you have a hand next to the neck? That is the bow and arrow, because you have to, right. The people that use the bow, they stretch towards their neck. He says no. Sefer HaYoshua, Sefer Mishnah. My korul Sefer HaYoshua l'chtiva asiso haYoshor ve'atoy b'nei Hashem. It says in the pasuk there Hayoshor ve'atoy, so it's called Sefer HaYoshua. Ve'echo remizo. Where does it say the pasuk there that Yehuda uses a bow and arrow? It says the Gemara, Yadov ruav loy. His hands are full. His hands are very busy. When you use both hands, is a bow and arrow. You need to use both hands. Shmuel Nachmani Yomer the Sefer Shoftim. What's Sefer Shoftim? My call the Sefer HaYoshua l'chtiv k'yomayim b'yimim mehem ein melech b'Yisrael. So there's no melech b'Yisrael. By the way, so here we see these B'chol of Belozor and Shmuel Bar Nachmani. Belozor says Sefer HaYoshua is Sefer Dvarim, and Shmuel Bar Nachmani says Sefer HaYoshua is Sefer Shoftim. So it says the Gemara here, it says the Gemara, it says that is Sefer Shoftim. So that's the Sefer Shoftim, it's called Sefer HaYoshua, because everybody's doing their Yoshua, whatever they wanted. Where is the hint over there that Yehuda uses bow and arrow? You have to teach them war. Which war you need to teach that you don't know on your own? That's bow and arrow. How do you know that it says over there Yehuda? It says there, Bnei Yisrael down the Milchama. So the Gemara, the Chtiv, it says there in the Psukim, it brought out a little bit earlier, who's going to be the one going for war? So you see clearly that Yehuda is the one fighting the war, and it says over there to teach them war, you see it using a bow and arrow. So there's three different sources, three different Sfarim, which are called to a certain degree Sefer HaYoshua. It says that Yehuda uses the bow and arrow. So we're now one more drasha we're dashing based on the machlokes we said before. So he gave Shaul to eat shoik ve'aliyah. My ve'aliyah. Aliyah means the tail. My ve'aliyah, why is it called aliyah? Misbecha shoik ve'aliyah. Because shoik and aliyah are very close to each other. As Rashi explains, that the tail is on top of the shoik. The shoik is the leg. So it's the bone of Tzim Segidim, right, the leg, and is holding the tail. That's what it means v'aleh. It's holding the tail. Talk about the leg and the breast of the behemoth. My value the machis to lechoze ilu the shoik kibaya nufi umarfilu. We have to do tnufas choze v'shoik. So then what do? You put the choze on top of the shoik. That's called a leo, not because it's there in the way the animal is growing. That's what you do tnufas choze v'shoik. Rashi points out over here, you usually have to give the choze v'shoik the koyanim, and here Shaul took it because he was a bomas yochim. You don't give this items to the kohen. Shmuel Nachmani Yomer shoik v'shufi. It's called a shufi. Rashi explains over here the shufi is kaf hayerech, is the type of is the part of the thigh. Umay v'aliyah shufi aliyah the shokai. That's where it's in. It's literally there. It's not only holding it, but it's really on top of the shoik in the shape of the animal. So two parts of the animal. Give it to show three sheetas. Which part was it? So we're going back to the Mishnah. It says that a woman should not have yichud with a goy. With a goy should not have yichud, with a Jew, yes. Says, well, what's the case? talk about one person. You're allowed to be with a Yisrael. Even with two women, a man cannot do yichud. Because they are, even a kosher man, two women are daitam kalas, you're not allowed to have yichud. So why it says davka b'agoy? So we're going to with base. Talk about three. Rashi says why we said three, even two men, it's good enough. But the reason why I mentioned three is when they go in on a trip, you need to have three. So if one goes to the bathroom, two stay. The Kavasog of Yisrael, so what? So Yisrael, you can have, if you have three men, you're okay even when they're going on a trip. So 1 second, the Kavasog of Yisrael, the Prutzim Yishar. That's, even Yisrael, that's what we're talking about ksherim. People that you're not suspicious of them doing things that are improper. But people that are Prutzim, which every guy is considered to be parutz, you can have it. The Ikar din is a woman can be have yichud to two men if they're in the city. That's after the ksherim. Prutzim, mafil asor namilo. If it's 10, even 10, you can't. You took her 10 people in one bed outside of the city in order to do avei with her. So I want to show that even 10 people can do an avei with one. Says the more talk about the wife is with the man. The wife doesn't guard the man. As she says, she wants to do his nose, he wants to do his nose, so they let each other to have an open marriage. His wife stops him from having a problem. We mentioned, remember the Mishnah, that a man should not be with a guy because of shlichus dom. Right? Once the Mishnah said, the way the parak started, that and a yishim because of a rise. So why? What about shlichus dom by a woman? What about that? Says the Gemara. She's an important woman, and they're not going to kill her. She's too important. But because of a riot, you do have a problem. A woman has weapons on her. The way Rashi explains is, that means a woman can always, if she needs to, she will allow them to use her for znos, and then that will guard her from being killed. That's what it means. So every woman is able to use that tools of getting out of death. Just allowing people to have znos with her. What's the difference between these two pshatim? What does it mean? So Rashi, the way Rashi learned the sugya is, chashuv ben anoshim is what we said before. She's very influential, and they don't want to kill her because they're afraid of her family connections and etc. Chashuv ben anoshim means that she's beautiful. That's what it means. She is important among other women, not for the woman. And when you look at her among other women, she is very beautiful. She stands out. So we say like this: if you have a woman who is important, she has good connections between the men, meaning she has connections, but among women, she's not important, meaning she's not beautiful. What will be the difference? According to the first Mandamar that says Isha Chashuvo, Yechoishesh Viznos, Yechoishesh Viznos over there, if she's not beautiful. So the Znus itself, Isha Chashuvo is that, so according to, I said it wrong. According to Rav Yirmiyah that says Isha Chashuvo, so we have a problem of a rayas. If she's not so beautiful, you're not choshesh to rayas. So Rashi learns when it said before Isha Chashuvo, she means Chashuvo everywhere. What do you mean Isha Chashuvo? She's influential and she's beautiful. So then you have a problem of a rayas because she's beautiful. What happens if she's influential and not beautiful? No problem. There's no shlichus damim and there's no rayas. According to the other Mandama, Isha Klizayna Aleh means that every woman is a rice. So therefore, even if she is not so beautiful, you still have a problem. That's what Rashi learns the Sugya. And the more says now, Tarek said that even though she has peace, what does it mean she has peace? She has Klizayna Aleh. She always can be seducing the men. Even though you don't choshesh to killing, you choshesh to a rice, and you always choshesh to a rice. That's the right. So Tais over here disagrees. Well, what's bothering Tais? Tais bothering a few things in Rashi. But first of all, the Lashon, Isha Chashuv ben Anoshim, doesn't sound like we're talking about a beautiful woman. Number one. Number two is, where do we find, if you go Every time we learn sugis about znus and shvuyo, do you ever differentiate between a woman who's beautiful and not beautiful? Do we ever say because a woman is not beautiful, so therefore we're not choishish that there was a beil over here? Just this, we never see such a thing. Now you're going to tell me that it depends if she's beautiful or not? Toys doesn't like that. So therefore, Toysa says, I didn't chat. What Yechezkel Zayin means that a woman is very weak, and people have mercy on a woman. They don't want to. She can't fight. Zayin means she's not a fighter. Her Zayin is herself. She's weak, and people have rechmanos on her. So that's what it means. So the first Banarma says she has to have connections in order to make sure not to die. The other one says no. Every woman is automatically weak, and she's okay. So that now, B'nanoshim Tosis learns, B'nanoshim means among men, B'nanoshim means among women. Among men, you have a chashash of arise. What about among women? Among women, do you have a problem of killing? So if you're saying that she's weak and they have rechmanos, so they have rechmanos, so also among the women. But if you're saying because of arise they don't kill her, or because she's connected, by one woman is not going to help her. That's what Tosis learns a little different. Rashi, long Tosis over here. It says that a man should not be tached to the goy because of killing. He has to walk together with the goy, make sure the goy goes to his right. It depends what he's holding, if it's a sword or a stick. Why? So Rashi explained the sword is usually on the left side. That's what they used to put. They used to put the sword on the left side. And then the person used his right, he took the sword from his left and start using it. So when the person is holding a sword, the Yisrael should be on his left, because then he's going to see if he's coming to take his sword. But when he's holding a stick, the stick is not on his left, the stick is on his right. So then the Yisrael wants to be on his right to be able to grab the stick from his hand if he sees he's about to use it. He's going up a hill or going down. Make sure Yisrael is not in the lower part, because then the guy will just push him down. In general, whenever he's next to him, he should not put his head down. Maybe he's going to smash his skull. If the guy asks the Jew, where are you going to? She always said, I'm going a little more. Why? Because he says, where are you going to? Well, I'm traveling now to Lakewood, he tells him, but really he's planning to go to Manhattan. So the guy is going to plan to kill him after Manhattan. In the meantime, he's going to leave. How do we see base of a Rosh? So I'm going to come to you. Says Yaakov does it. I don't want to come to you to say it. So he went to Sukkot, he stopped over there. So he gave him a little lengthier place where he's going to get to. So when the Talmidim of Akiva going to Gziv, thieves found them. Where are you going? I'm going to Akko, which is further away in Eretz Yisrael. Once they got Gziv, they left. They left the trade. So the thieves realized that they lied to them. You're Talmidim of who? I'm going to Talmidim of Akiva. So you see, you know how to deal with thieves. You don't want to tell us where you're going to, so we're not gonna hurt you. He went to this place. Thieves found him. Now, as we'll see in the Gemara, that's in Bavel. Where are you going to? I'm going to Pobadiso, which is further away. When he got to Beit Torah, he left. I'm going to tell me that the Yehuda Ramah, you're the Talmud of your Yehuda, they called him Ramah, a liar. You're a liar, you lied to us. You know him and you still say this, you speak to him in such a derogatory way. We're going to put you in Cher. For 22 years they went to try to steal, to thief, to do their job of being thieves. They weren't successful. They realized what happened. They came back and said, please take away our Cher. One of them was a big bald guy. Gardona means he's a weaver, and he didn't come. A lion ate him. Rashi learns Deloitte Taizen means that he's not an onav. So the Gardon who's not an onav is a bal gaivo. He lost years from his life because he didn't come to take away his hair. The Ganovim the ones that list in Eretz Yisrael, usually, as Rashi puts out, Listim is worse than Ganav. So the Listim of Eretz Yisrael, when they realized what happened, they gave a shevach to Rabbi Akiva. Said, he's so smart, so great. The Ganavim, which was the Listim in Bavel, they said a curse to Rabbi Yudo. Look the difference between the level of the Ganavim of Eretz Yisrael, maybe the thieves of Eretz Yisrael, and the Ganavim of Bavel. So, Gomer Rabbi, we'll stop over here.